I will show you how I have painted Ariane from Zombicide Black Plague. She is one of the heroes from the big box expansion Wulfsburg, but first let me show you my painted miniature. I have enjoyed painting this miniature a lot. When I looked at the artwork, I immediately knew that the focus point for me for this miniature would be the big bright red cape. I don't know what it is about red, but I just love painting red. Well, it is my favorite color, but also I've had good results with the red color before. I am using about 4 colors of Vallejo red. The steps are pretty easy. The only downside is you need 4 colors, but with these 4 colors, you can have great red colors on your miniature. For the rest of the miniature, I kept it pretty simple, more or less. I did some base colors, and on average I went over the miniature with like a shade, but a lighter shade. With that I mean I thinned down the shade with water so that the colors wouldn't darken as much as they would before. I did go over some areas with the base color again, but because I did the lighter shade with the water, I did not have to go over everything again. The only thing that I've really highlighted is the cape, obviously, but on the other parts, the miniature was really easy to paint and the results are really good. So let me show you how I done it. Let's paint. I primed the miniature in the color Standard Grey from Citadel. Before I primed the miniature, I washed it with warm water and dishwasher soap to make sure the primer stays on well. For the skin, I used the colors Brown Sand with Pale Flesh from Vallejo. I'll mix these colors with a 50-50 ratio. So 1 drop of brown sand mixed with 1 drop of pale flesh. The only skin that is showing is her face. For the shirt, I will use the color Iroko from scale 75. I will also paint the area between the gloves with this color. For the sleeves, I use the colors Rainy Grey from scale 75 with Off-White from Vallejo. I'll mix in a little bit of Off-White with the Rainy Grey. I use a bit of white to make this grey color a bit softer. For the pants, I will use the color Field Grey from scale 75 with Off-White from Vallejo. Here I did the same as the sleeves. I mixed in a little bit of Off-White with Field Grey, just to make the color a bit softer as well. For the scarf, I used the color Off-White from Vallejo. I will also paint the part of the scarf on her side with this color. For her hair, I used the color Petroleum Grey from scale 75. This is basically my go-to color if I want to paint something black, but I want to use a dark grey color instead of the black color. For the boots, I used the color German Black Brown from Vallejo. For the gloves, the bag, arrow and small daggers, I will use the colors Chocolate Brown from Vallejo with Leather Brown from the Army Painter. I mix these colors with a 50-50 ratio, so 1 drop of Chocolate Brown with 1 drop of Leather Brown. I will also paint a very thin layer of this in the area between the gloves. For the bow and small pouch, I use the colors Earth with Khaki from Vallejo. I'll mix these colors with a 50-50 ratio. I will also use the color German Black Brown again, but this time on the wings of the bow and the straps to hold the small daggers. For different kind of small details, I will use the color Bonewhite from Vallejo. I will use this color for the hairband, details on the bag, pouch, pants, and on the arrow. Some of these details are very small. I will use a little bit of paint on my brush and very gently touch those areas. For the item showing in the bag, I will use the color Polished Gold from Vallejo. For all the metal parts, I will use the color Chainmail Silver from Vallejo. I will use this color on the daggers, buckles and bow. For the cape, I use the colors Black Red, Red, Gory Red and Bloody Red from Vallejo. There are a lot of different colors that I will use for the cape. The steps are pretty easy. I will use these colors to create a nice bright red color. I start by applying 2 thin layers of the color Black Red. For the next step, I will use the color Red. I will slowly build up to the brighter color by applying multiple layers of very thin paint. I will leave the recesses with the darker color of the previous step. I will apply about 4 thin layers in this color. I will paint most of the parts of the cape in this color, just not the recesses. With this color applied, the cape already starts to have a nice red color. Here is the miniature painted with all the layers in the color red. For the next step, I will use the color Gory Red. I'll paint this layer pretty much over the previous layer. I'm going for a more bright red than I have so far. I will still leave the recesses with the darker color and paint most of the areas and leave just an edge of the color of the previous step. I will also paint a bit more of this color in the raised parts. After that step, I wanted the red color to be a bit more bright, so for the next step I will use a 50-50 mix of Gory Red with Bloody Red. Again, painting over most parts in the previous step, and also here I paint more layers in the raised parts. This step is just going to make the red color pop more and be more bright. As a last step, I will use the color Gory Red. I'll paint smaller areas with this color. I will not paint most areas, but only the upper parts where the light will fall. This is my last highlight step. I also used a little bit of paint on my brush with very thin layers of paint. All the base colors have been applied and I have finished the cape. Here is a better look at the cape all done. Most of the miniature has been painted. There are only a few steps left. The next step is to apply the shade. For the skin, I use Reikland Fleshshade from Citadel. I will apply this to her face. I will use it straight out of the bottle. For the shoes and hair, I will use Nuln Oil from Citadel out of the bottle. And for the pants, scarf and hairband, I will use a 50-50 mix of Nuln Oil with water. For all the other areas, just not the cape, I use Agrax Earthshade and Nuln Oil from Citadel. I'll mix in 4 drops of Agrax Earthshade, 3 drops of Nuln Oil with 7 drops of water. Be aware that I will not use any shade on the cape. I will apply these thin layers of shade to give me more control of where the shade will go. It will also not darken the colors as much. I will first use a 50-50 mix of brown sand with pale flesh on the raised areas of the face. After that, I will use a little bit of pale flesh to do some highlighting on the T-zone, so nose and forehead, cheeks and around the mouth. Then I will paint 2 black dots in the eye sockets with the color black. I also decided to paint her eyebrows with the color Petroleum Gray. And I finished with applying 2 layers of Bloodletter glaze on her lips. For the last details, I will apply the color Iroko only on the trims of the shirt. I will also apply a very thin layer of the color Off-White on the scarf. I forgot to bring this color when I was making the picture, but I did use the color Off-White. And I will retouch all the metal parts with the color Chainmail Silver. For the base, I will first use the colors Thar Brown with Mojave White from scale 75. I will use a 50-50 mix of these colors to paint the whole base. After that, I will use the color Brown Gray from scale 75 to paint the patterns of the stones on the base. I will paint 6 stones with the colors Hykey Yellow from scale 75 and Off-White from Vallejo. I finish off the base to paint the side of the base in the color Arbuckle Brown from scale 75. After letting the miniature dry for at least 24 hours, I will apply Quick Shade in the color Strong Tone from the Army Painter on the base. After letting the Quick Shade dry for at least 48 hours, I use the Anti-Shine Matte Varnish from the Army Painter. I hope you have enjoyed watching this tutorial. If you have any questions, as always, you can leave them in the comments below. But what are you actually painting at the moment? I've been painting my Zombicide heroes, but there are so many more miniatures we can paint. I would love to know what other great painters like you are working on right now. Let me know.